Hello, Malavika. My name is Ellen, and I'll be correcting this essay for you today. Very happy to see that you have submitted an essay for correction so that we can help you on your way to preparing for IELTS. So let's just jump right into this. This is the essay about ex-prisoners. So let's see what you had to say. Few individuals who have been to a penal institution eventually transform into amiable countrymen, and it is many a time debated that these are the best persons to converse to a youngster about the repercussion of committing a felony. I strongly agree with the statement, as there is no better person to advocate this subject than a reformed ex convict who clearly understands the bearings of one's actions. Okay, so, you've really used a lot of advanced vocabulary. You've done a nice job of um, rephrasing the task and using new language, and you've included all of the things that you need to include. That is, you've included your position, you've used a rephrasing of the topic. So, all of this is really, really good. There is one thing that I want you to watch out for. A lot of times, candidates, especially candidates who do have good vocabulary, sometimes they kind of overshoot this. And what I mean is that they use vocabulary in an effort to show how advanced and how wide their vocabulary is. Sometimes it goes a little too far and it comes off as unnatural because in natural English speech or writing, we don't always use these words, and sometimes we in fact go for the simpler word. So one of the keys to a high scoring essay in lexical resource is knowing when to use which word. So in other words, knowing when to use a more basic, a simpler word rather than a higher level word, because a higher level word just sounds a little off. So let's talk about this, okay? Let's look at it again. First of all, you had a grammatical mistake here. You wrote few individuals, but few means here, in other words, few without the article a means very few, like almost none. Okay, so it has a negative meaning. I don't think that's what you meant. And more appropriate here would have been a few, whereas where a few means several, has a more positive meaning. And that would have been more appropriate in this context. So let's look at it again. Uh, so a few individuals who have been to here it would have been better, penal institutions, that would have been okay, eventually transform into, and this is what I meant, amiable countrymen is not really a great rephrasing of good citizens. Okay, even though I understand this is what you're trying to do, it's a little bit of an overshoot. So, what could you have said that would have been a more faithful rephrasing of this? Well, you could have said something like eventually transform into upstanding citizens, eventually transform into law abiding citizens or law abiding individuals. That would have been a great expression, law abiding individuals. That would have been perfect, actually. So, eventually transform into law abiding individuals. And this too, you didn't really need to write it is many a time. It just doesn't feel particularly appropriate here. Okay? And it is often debated that these are the best people to converse with youngsters about the repercussions of committing a felony. Okay? So it's a little bit of grammar, it's a little bit of vocabulary. So that's pretty much what I wanted to discuss with you here. And then here, this is the wrong word. You don't advocate this subject. That's not really entirely appropriate. I strongly agree with the statement, as there is no better person to maybe perform this function, or maybe to no better person to uh, let's see, fulfill this mission. Okay, so these are a couple of ideas that would have been better here. So, than a reformed convict clearly understands the bearings of one's actions, and the rest of it is fine. So, we spent a ton of time on your introduction. Let's move on to your body paragraphs. The world is full of different people coming from various socioeconomic backgrounds, and children are often found to be the soft targets for criminal activities, especially the teens. Young teens are the most vulnerable group, as during this period is where they begin to explore the new horizons of individual freedom. During this period, juveniles develop a huge disregard for rules, which often leads them to explore dangerous paths. In such scenarios, awareness programs are a key contributor in educating these youngsters. For instance, a recent study done in California by researchers has found that increased frequency of awareness programs have led, here you needed LED, because this is the metal that you're talking about here, to many amiable teenagers in the city. Okay, again, amiable is not the right word. Amiable means like friendly, like it's just not really the right word here. Now, that's pretty much it in terms of grammar and vocabulary. All right, there's really not much else to say. I thought you did really, really well in those two respects. But I do have a question about task response and coherence and cohesion. What is the central idea in this paragraph? Okay, and this is a really important thing. It should be clear to us, especially if you have a nice, clear topic sentence. It should be clear what your central idea is. All right, so from that beginning of that paragraph, we should know what this paragraph is going to be about. So I didn't really understand what this paragraph was going to be about. I was trying to follow it. I was like, okay, at some point I'll find the central idea. So for me, the central idea wasn't really entirely clear. Okay, so all I know is that from this first sentence is that teenagers are vulnerable. But where are you actually talking about the prisoners? What you talked about here was an awareness program, but we don't know who is conducting this awareness program. We don't know who the contributors to this program are. So it's a paragraph that, although uses lovely grammar and lovely vocabulary, it doesn't really do a lot to answer the question. And we don't know if ex convicts are a part of this. So it needed a little work. All right. So just to kind of reiterate, it needed a clear topic sentence which shows us what the central idea of this paragraph is. Okay. And then it needed development that somehow responded and answered this question. Okay. So are the ex convicts a part of this awareness program? Are they not a part? Are you telling us that maybe somebody else is a better person to talk to youngsters about crime? All of this needs to be really, really clear in this paragraph. Okay. So let's move on to the next. Furthermore, if these study workshops are conducted by an ex-convict, there's something happening with your grammar here. Furthermore, if these study shops are conducted by an ex-convict, they will get rid of the rather. They will be highly beneficial for the students to learn from their shared experiences. All right, you don't need a comma after since. Since the reformed prisoners have led LED, a past life disregarding system rules, they will naturally be able to mitigate through these young minds with ease, whereas a person coming from a meticulous background may not achieve it. It is, you shouldn't use contracted forms here. It is believed that the younger generation takes serious conscience, that's the wrong word here, when taught from real life experiences. Some culprits, while serving their sentences many times, reflect on their past actions and come out of the facility as gracious humans. Moreover, their past expertise in the field of felonies makes them great advocates for overcoming potential dangers. For example, a recent article published in the Washington Post reports that programs conducted by ex prisoners helped the local students from falling prey to treacherous criminal activities in their neighborhood. Hence, this clearly shows that lessons from these citizens were advantageous. All right, so there were a couple of grammatical mistakes. It wasn't anything really serious. We could still get the meaning of what you were saying. But what I'm finding here is that you really kind of flipped back and forth in the development here. So there wasn't a particularly logical progression of your ideas. And again, this is going to affect your coherence and cohesion score. Okay? So, so now what I understand is that this paragraph was kind of leading up to this paragraph. But I don't think that this type of development was particularly effective. Okay? Because this paragraph needed on its own to relate to the question, and it didn't. You don't want a paragraph that just kind of sets up your next. You want a paragraph that on its own kind of autonomously relates to the question at hand. Okay? So then what did you tell us here? So this was okay. And then I didn't really understand this sentence. They take serious conscience when taught from real life experiences. Didn't understand that. And then here, this idea didn't really seem to, here, this one here. This idea here didn't really seem to fit in anywhere. Okay. And then this was okay. But like I said, you had a couple of sentences that it wasn't entirely clear. Why they were there, why they were placed there. So they didn't really link in particularly well. So you could have gotten rid of them, or maybe you could have made it clear to us why you thought it was important. For me, though, like I said, a really important thing here is that this paragraph needed to be rewritten in a different way. So what I'm suggesting is maybe what you could have done is you could have talked about one reason why you think these ex-convicts are the best people, and then another paragraph talking about another reason why you think they're the best people. Now, there are a couple of other ways you could have done this. Think about the word here. There is a key word here in this essay that some people pick up on, but not everybody really does. So, the best people to talk about to talk to teenagers. What does that imply to us? That they are the best people. There is an implication of some sort of comparison here. So, comparing them to other people, they are the best. So, who else is considered good in this effort to deter children from a life of crime? So, that's one thing you could have talked about. You could have talked about some people who are considered good. Maybe it's policemen, maybe it's teachers, maybe it's famous athletes or something. Okay. And then how these people have been known to talk to youngsters about crime and that they're very good. They do this, they do that. However, despite the positive influence that these people play, ex-prisoners are in fact the best people because of A, B, C, D, E reason. Okay, so that was another way you could have done this. That's not the only way, obviously. There are many ways, but I'm just giving you an idea of how you could. So let's look at your conclusion. In conclusion, I fully support the idea of reformed culprits. Yeah, let's avoid this word culprit. I know it's really tempting to use different words, but culprit is not entirely contextually accurate here. So you could have used ex-prisoners, you could have used ex-convicts, former inmates. That would have been okay. So I fully support the idea of reformed ex-convicts educating teenagers on how to prevent themselves from committing a felony, provided the school administration takes necessary steps ensuring implementation of their ideas and suggestions into the school curriculum. Okay, now this is really interesting because it's nice in terms of grammar, but you've introduced a brand new idea with the school administration, with school curriculum, and that's kind of out of left field, more or less, because you never talked about that in your body paragraph. We use our conclusion to really wrap up the main ideas of our essay, not much more than that. What we could do is we could potentially leave like a thought-provoking idea or like some sort of prediction for the future, but here it felt like you kind of introduced a brand new idea that would have been better if you had put it in your body paragraph. Okay, so you could have potentially done that, but here in your conclusion it feels like you're introducing something brand new, and the conclusion is not the place for that. All right, so Malavika, I see some really great elements in your writing. It looks like you have a nice control of grammar. You've got some good vocabulary happening. There is some inaccuracy with it, so that's something we need to work on. But I think more than that, I would like to work with you on the structure of your essays. Okay. um, Organizing your ideas in such a way that you're creating really cohesive paragraphs, and that, paragraphs that get your idea across and that are well developed. So that's something I think that we could definitely work on together. In the email you'll get from us, there will be a link giving you different options on how you can work with us. Please do look at it, consider it, see if it's something you'd like to do. I know we'd be happy to work with you. I think that we can definitely get you where you need to be. So hopefully we'll see more work from you in the future. I want to wish you lots and lots of luck.